Part 3, Chapter 5. A crescent moon was suspended in the blue-black sky. It hung like a Christmas ornament from the tallest of the group of junipers. 1,000 feet below the trees, to the southeast, the Colorado River surged along the jagged course it had cut through the rock that had provided scientists with some of the richest sources of uranium in the nation. 90 miles southeast of that was the point where Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico touched, the only place in the country where 4 states shared a common boundary. Just beside the trees was an easel with a stretched canvas. The unfinished painting showed the river with the sun reflected in rippling dashes of yellow. Behind the painting was a dying campfire close to an army surplus tent, and in the tent was the artist, Jim Solomon, who snuggled close to his wife, Wanda. Jim was newly retired from the arts pages of the Chicago Tribune, and the drive from the Windy City to Utah was their way of celebrating. They had arrived at sunset, eaten, and promptly collapsed in each other's arms, intending to make love. But Wanda had a cold, and Jim was too tired from driving for even a run at the preliminaries. Their packed Blazer sat several yards away on the dirt road by the edge of the escarpment. Its chrome fenders and grey sides glinted as the headlights of a truck struck it. The lights were cut almost at once, though dirt still crunched as the tires passed over it, more slowly once the headlights were off. The truck stopped some 20 yards away. The driver's side door opened. A flashlight snapped on, and the circle of light caught the green painting on the white door that read, Canyonlands National Park Rangers. The flashlight dropped a circle of light on the scrub and rock, and on the squeaky brown hiking boots and green cuffs of the ranger. He checked the inside of the car, front seat then back, before walking over to the tent. The fire threw orange waves across his uniform as he tapped on the ridgepole. "Evening," he said loudly. "Park Ranger, I'd like to talk to somebody about this fire." Dark shapes moved inside the tent. "What?" said a man's voice, startled. "Oh, hell." A woman's voice said, "I'll talk to him, Jim." "It's all right, Wanda," Jim replied sourly. "You stay put." Jim hadn't bothered to zipper the door. He ducked out of the tent, still dressed, and held a hand palm out to shield his eyes from the flashlight. "Officer," he said, "or sir, or... I'm not sure what to call you." "Ranger," said the voice. "Ranger," said Jim. "I know we're not supposed to have wood fires in the park. It's the dry season and there's lots of leaves and wood. It's just... Wanda's got a cold and I wanted her to stay warm." The ranger began kicking it out with his shoe. Jim watched as soot-sized embers flew up and about. I'll get some water." "Sir," said the ranger, "have you seen any other hikers or campers anywhere around here?" "Not this time of year," said Jim. "That's why we came here. They told me in Moab that it's dead now." "True," said the ranger. Jim rubbed his arms in the sudden cold. "Say, what's the fine for something like this?" "Pretty steep," the ranger said casually. "Your life." Jim grinned. His mouth, like the moon, was a beaming crescent frozen in the glow of the flashlight. But the smile collapsed as he saw the shadowy shape of a .38 caliber pistol and silencer, and it twisted into something surreal as the ranger put 3 bullets into his heart. Jim fell onto the remnants of the fire, throwing up more sparks, and the ranger fired 3 more shots into the shadow of the woman sitting inside the tent. She flew backward, her feet thumping down in the open doorway, dark splotches splattering the inside of the tent. The ranger unfastened the silencer, returned the gun to its holster, snapped off the flashlight, and took his walkie-talkie from its belt loop. "Baker here," he said after switching on the transceiver. "Go ahead," said a voice on the other end. "Secured," Baker said. "Very good," said the other voice. A moment later, larger headlights washed over the campsite as a pair of Humvees rolled up the winding path. The big vehicles stopped beside the Ranger truck. The wiry passenger in the first Humvee, Novacek, left the walkie-talkie on the seat as he got out. "I thought Rangers are supposed to preserve our natural resources. Like people," he said to Baker. "Shut up and help me with Johnson's gear," said Lett, the gangly driver. Professor Johnson, who had been driving the second Humvee, looked away from the carnage as the other two unloaded a large trunk from their vehicle. "Don't take it like that," said a man who was still sitting inside the second Humvee. "Feel glad for them. How many people get to die quickly, painlessly, in such a tranquil setting?" Johnson was facing the Humvee, his long-fingered hands splayed on top. "Somehow, Mr. Pritchett, that fails to console." The slender figure cocked his head to one side in acquiescence. "Perhaps it falls a little short at that. In which case, think of money, Mr. Johnson. Lots of it." "I'll try," Johnson replied. "Good. Only think of it while you work. There's a great deal to be done." Nodding weakly, Johnson pushed his thick-rimmed glasses back on his nose, then walked to where the other men were opening the trunk, mercifully out of sight of the bodies. "Oh, and Mr. Baker," Pritchett called. "Yo!" "Drag Nature Boy from the fire or we'll be smelling him all night." "Roger," Baker said. The killer grabbed Jim's arm and pulled him from the smouldering campfire, his blood sizzling as it dripped into the flames. And then, by the light of the headlights, the men set up a tripod, while, working gingerly, Johnson lifted a long tube from the trunk. Chapter 6. A solid, dimensional overhead view of the B-3 was moving across the computer screen, over a map of west-central Colorado. The map moved with minute-hand slowness as the bomber flew west, with Missouri and Kansas and most of Colorado behind it. "Climb to 19,000 on heading 287, Hale said. "Copy," Deakins replied. 19 on 287. "What do you hear about your slot in the Aurora project?" "Doesn't look like that's gonna happen," Hale told him. "Did you talk to Taylor like I said?" Hale nodded. "And?" "He told me I haven't got enough fighter hours to get into the pool." "Really?" Deakins said. "And did you tell him that you can outfly some of those winged peckers with half your time?" "I said, thank you, sir, goodbye." Hale shot Deakins a look. "And don't say it." "Don't say what?" Deakins asked. "That you just caved in?" "Yeah," Hale said. "Don't say that. I mean, what was I gonna do? Lie?" "No," Deakins said. "Sell yourself." "That's just another word for fight," Hale said. "So, what's wrong with that?" "What's wrong is that... Christ," said Hale, exasperated. "Don't you get it? If all you've got is a hammer, how long before everything starts to look like a nail?" "That's deep," Deakins said. "Fact is, I'd rather be the hammer than the nail. I'd rather act than react. Good. And would you rather be a major than a colonel? Hale asked. Deakins fired him a look. Touché, he said. You nailed me good with that one. I'm sorry, Hale continued, but you would have been, you know, if only you knew when to back off, or at least who to back off from. Maybe you should have written me a list, co-pilot, a promotion crib sheet. Hale shook his head. You could have figured all that out, but like I've been telling you for years, we're different. I know, Deakins said. You say tomato, I say tomato. Hale smirked. I get the feeling that's something else before my time. Deakins grinned. Yeah, he said. He adjusted the helmet microphone, which was the size of a fresh pencil eraser, and clicked on. Ghost 7 to McMurrin. Hey, Wilkins, you ground-pounding bag of shit. Your boys in Utah still awake? The voice of Colonel Max Wilkins came back smartly. Copy, Mr. Deakins. We're ready and waiting. Be advised, we're gonna snatch your sorry little asses this evening and bite down hard. You may pass that along to Mr. Hale with my compliments. Deakins shut off the microphone and looked across the cockpit at Hale. Willie boy is giving us chewed. You want to take it through tonight? Absolutely, said Hale. Tell the good colonel I'll fly this puppy right through his knees and mail his dick back to him. Deakins smiled. He flicked the microphone back on. Copy, Colonel. Captain Hale says if anyone can catch us, it'll be you. Copy, said Wilkins. I'm sure that's what he said. More likely it was, tell the colonel I can fly this through his spreading ass cheeks without him knowing. Deakins swallowed a laugh. No, Colonel, I can assure you he did not say that. Yeah, right. Tell me another one, Mother Goose. Deakins grinned as he reached forward and pushed a blue button on the console. He heard a click in the built-in headphones. Command, this is Ghost 7, approaching enemy radar, switching to mission mode. We copy, said a voice. Deakins glanced at the digital readout beneath one of the monitors. They seemed brighter now that the world outside was dark. Mark 0129, over. Roger that mark, Ghost 7. See you on the other side. Over and out. Deakins pushed a red button beside the blue one, which sent the radio back to the AWACS. He said nothing, just listened as the kid put his crew through their doomed-to-fail paces. Everyone get a fix, Wilkins said evenly. They're about to turn off the lights. Poor Willie boy, Deakins thought. Always chasing rainbows and ghosts, and never catching any of them. He's not ahead of the curve like us. Well, he thought, not like me. Deakins glanced at Hale. Ready, Captain? Hale was looking at the topographic display. His right hand was on the control stick. His left hovered over a horizontal panel with 3 buttons. Takeoff, mission, and landing. On your command, Hale said. Deakins checked the airspeed and height. 25,000 feet, 400 miles per hour. Dead on, Captain. Go to war. Hale pressed the mission button and the B-3 went into full stealth mode. Outside running lights off, noise dampeners engaged, contrail gone, and control panel dark save for the 8 screens, which went from bright to dim. Though the microphone had gone off, the radio receiver was still hot, and Deakins stayed tuned in to the conversation in the AWACS. Lost them on IFF, Wilkins said moments after the mission button was pressed. Who's still got 'em? A voice at Wilkins' side trumpeted. I've got their heat signature, sir. Deakins listened closely. Their engines may be cold, the voice continued, but the background's colder. The B3 is smack over Grand Junction. So, the fuzzheads have us, Deakins thought. For the moment. In his mind's eye, he could see the screen in the AWACS, the background, a waveform pattern, with the sharp triangle of the B3 moving across it. The Major looked at the map of the targets on the computer screen, center top. The hostile radar sites, the bogus targets in Utah, were blinking red. His eyes moved backward along the Colorado River, which wriggled like a polygraph line between the two states. Hail, Deakins said. Descend to 400 feet AGL, River Valley approach. Go to 0.7 Mach. Airspeed 0.7 Mach, Hale replied calmly. That's 0.1 over maximum. She can handle it, Deakins said. At least that's what the computers tell us. Time to find out if they're right. Hale said, Airspeed lock at 0.7 Mach. Blue line descend on throttle to 400 feet AGL. He began pulling back on the throttle. Time to limbo down, see if we can surprise them with how low we can go. Oh, they'll be surprised, Deakins said with a grin. I promise you that.